Why do you get angry? Maybe it's because your roommate didn't do their dishes, or your dad won't let you stay out past 12, or your dog chewed on your favorite pair of sneakers. In everyday life, it is inevitable that people are going to get mad. It's a fact of life that people will get into conflicts, become frustrated, or otherwise feel as if their head is about to explode. Now, this is nothing new, and people are always going to be mad about something. What is new, however, is that Americans today are angrier at unprecedented levels. And they're mad about the big picture, the structure of our democracy in our country. And they're angry at the other citizens who live in it. In today's environment especially, it seems like everybody is shouting, from protesters on the street to politicians in Washington. Turn on the news and it won't be long until you see someone who's angry. But what is causing this? Why does it seem like there is new outrage every single day? I believe it is because America and its citizens have lost sight in the importance of civil public debate. America has grown increasingly angrier with the loss of public deliberation and the rise of stone-headed partisanship. It is this polarization that is at the core of American anger, as citizens increasingly view politics as a two-sided conflict, rather than a circular discussion of deliberation and ideas. James Fishkin is the director of Stanford's Center for Deliberative Democracy. He is famous for his groundbreaking studies on a well-run democracy. Fishkin believes that one of the most important aspects in any functioning democracy is public deliberation. Power to the people, he calls this. Public deliberation, loosely defined, is the public discussion and choice-making that is necessary for people solving the problems in their communities. Indeed, in any healthy democracy, public debate and disagreement is essential. This is so important for making sure all people's voices are heard, and it drives innovation and change from within the country. Today, there are over 328 million people living in the United States. Each one of these citizens brings with them different personal values and thoughts about how the country should be run. Now, the key to public deliberation is that everyone's ideas are respected as legitimate and are heard. All people should go into deliberation with an open mind with no assumptions about others. This requires lots of different people from lots of different backgrounds. The point of deliberation isn't to prove who's right and who's wrong or to convince somebody else to change their mind. It is the ability to allow a free flow of ideas which stimulates other people's minds and hearts so that they might walk away with an opinion that is different from the one they entered. This is so important because it makes sure that all sides are explored in complex issues, making sure things aren't seen as a black and white binary. Public deliberation should not be a fiery, two-sided debate, which is all too common today. It is a circular, free-flowing discussion of ideas where ideas are taken in, digested, and commented on. I argue that this type of political conversation is getting lost. In fact, people are even becoming increasingly wary to discuss politics in general. According to a study done by Pew Research in 2018, over 55% of Americans think that it's frustrating or even stressful to discuss politics with people who they disagree with. The mindset of receptivity, which is so essential to deliberation, has dwindled, and instead has been replaced with one of defensiveness and spite. Caught in the middle of this crossfire are the citizens, who now have to flee to either side of the spectrum or risk being ignored or stepped upon by those with more stone-headed views. The loss of proper deliberation has led to a crisis in our country, and the crisis is one of increased anger. Unless you've been living under a rock for the past 5 years or so, it's no surprise to learn that America is divided. It's easy to see this when you turn on the news. The scene is all too common for American viewers. The anchor outlines a news story or controversy within politics or around a matter of public opinion, and a number of contributors are introduced. The guests are set up on two sides in what is stylized as a sort of debate, one liberal and one conservative. They go back and forth and try to find holes in each other's arguments and discredit each other. And more often than not, more emphasis is put on discrediting those on the other side and not even on backing up their own claims. Scenes like this are harmful to Americans because they transform public debate almost into a sort of war. Explosive panel argument over Trump and race, one CNN article is titled. Gun debate explodes on The Five, a Fox News segment is called. Fiery, meaningless arguments plague the news in an attempt to get people riled up. Deborah Tannen, linguistics professor from Georgetown University, has pegged this trend as a rise in what she calls combat culture. She describes this as a new way of thinking for Americans, where your side is right and the other side is not only wrong, but they're immoral. According to a study done by Pew Research after the 2016 election, 47% of Republicans view Democrats as immoral, and 42% of Democrats view Republicans as dishonest. Over the past 2 years, as the numbers of Republicans and Democrats with very unfavorable views of the opposing party have grown, so too have the shares saying the other party threatens the nation's well-being. 45% of Republicans view Democratic policies as a threat, and 41% of Democrats feel the same way about the Republican Party's policies. It is clear from this that many Americans just don't have trust in one another. Americans are primed to want to fight with each other, not come together in any common agreement. This is what Dr. Tannen calls agonism. It is the knee-jerking, anger-inducing instinct of contradiction which one feels when presented with an argument they disagree with. To fight it out is to give in to the anger which now leads our deliberation. This mentality of politics as a battleground between two sides is as harmful for the American public as it is for our representatives in Washington. It is driving us apart, and it has led to the largest divide American politics has seen. The cost of this combat culture is a rise in political partisanship which has plagued America. The evidence is everywhere that Americans have become much more polarized in their thinking over the past decade. According to another study conducted by the Pew Research Center, in 1994, about 42% of Americans held equally liberal and conservative views. So in other words, they were centrists. In 2019, only 32% of citizens hold centrist values. What is even more troubling than this is that many citizens have developed an animosity towards those of the opposing party. This same study found that 71% of Republicans view themselves as partisan because they view liberal policies as harmful to the country. On the opposite end, 63% of Democrats feel the same way about Republican policies. The rise of agonism is very dangerous, and violence in our country has erupted. According to the Gun Violence Archive, there were more mass shootings in 2019 than there were days on the calendar. Criminal justice data reports that hate crimes in California alone have risen 44% since just 2015. Political scientists Liliana Mason and Nathan Kalmo's paper on partisanship found that 15% of Republicans and 20% of Democrats agree that the country would be better off if large numbers of the opposing party just died. Even more think it's acceptable to send threatening messages to public officials who they disagree with. How is it that Americans have let anger consume them in such a way? When people demonize those on the other side, it is impossible to develop any substantial deliberation, and anger can run high. Now, America is angry because it is divided, and our democracy is suffering. In Barack Obama's final State of the Union, he calls, and I quote, "Rancor and suspicion between the parties one of the few regrets of my presidency," unquote. America cannot grow if these trends of anger continue, and only by alleviating it will the people of our country be confident in America's future. Thank you.